I parked by the curb like I always did. Same street, same mailbox, same porch light that used to stay on till I walked in. But tonight, it was off. Just that detail alone should have told me something wasn't right. 18 hours in the ICU. My gloves still smelled like antiseptic, and there was blood I hadn't scrubbed out of my sleeve cuff. I'd cracked a rib doing compressions on a teenage overdose, and I'd pronounced 2 dead. That boy's mother was still sobbing when I clocked out. I was too tired to be angry, too used to compartmentalizing. All I wanted was to take off my shoes, microwave leftover soup, and sink into silence for 4 hours before heading back in. I walked up the steps, fished out my keys like muscle memory, and shoved one into the lock. It didn't turn. I blinked. Tried again, this time slower. The key felt the same, but the mechanism resisted like I'd never lived there. No click, no give, just metal against metal. The wind cut through my coat. I knocked. Not hard, not desperate, just routine. Because in my head, this had to be a mistake. The door opened. Laurel stood there, wearing my college hoodie like it belonged to her. One hand holding our mother's white porcelain mug, the other swiping through something on her phone. She didn't even flinch. "Well," she said, like I was the one interrupting her evening. "Didn't expect you this early." I swallowed. "The key doesn't work." "Yeah," she said. "We changed the locks." No apology, no explanation. "Dad's been stressed. You being here, it's a lot. It's time you figured things out. I need space too." My mouth dried. You just changed the locks?" She took a sip from the mug. "Look, you've been living here for free for years. Everyone's been tiptoeing around your moods, your shifts. It's exhausting." I stared at her. Laurel raised an eyebrow. "You really think you're still part of this family? You're not even in the new will." I didn't say anything. My heart was pounding, but my body didn't move. I wasn't shocked. Not really. This wasn't the first time Laurel spoke like I was just an echo she was tired of hearing. I didn't shout, didn't cry. I just stood there, hands limp, like my muscles didn't quite belong to me. My bag slid off my shoulder and hit the step. They were supposed to be my peace, not my battlefield. I looked at her, looked past her, into the house. Same furniture, same rug, same smell of cinnamon plug-ins Hazel loved. But it didn't feel like home anymore. "Understood," I said, soft enough to make her squint. She gave a curt nod, then closed the door. Click. I sat in my car, the engine off, hands still wrapped around the wheel though I hadn't started it. The porch light stayed off. Across the street, the Johnsons' dog barked once. Inside the house, someone laughed, probably Laurel or Elias. He moved in 3 months ago and never left. He ate the food I bought. Slept on the couch I picked out from my first paycheck. I didn't cry, just stared through the windshield, eyes foggy but dry. My fingers were freezing, but I didn't reach for the heat. My mother used to sit on that porch, flipping through her medical magazines. She'd leave post-its in the margins. "You'll be better than me," one of them said. I kept that one in my wallet until it wore thin. I turned the ignition. The engine sputtered, then caught. Nowhere felt like a destination, but the hospital had an on-call room. Plastic mattress, scratchy sheets, dim overhead light. It wasn't home, but at least it wouldn't lock me out. I slept in my scrubs, shoes on, bag unopened. The room smelled like alcohol wipes and worn-out ambition. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor beeped, comforting in its own way. They didn't just lock me out of a house. They locked me out of my place in the story. Laurel took credit for the cupcakes at my 6th birthday, though I made them. Hazel tossed out Mom's cinnamon candles 3 days after the funeral, claimed they were too much. I found them in the trash, wick unburned. This didn't start tonight. It just ended here. I opened my duffel, found the envelope I kept for work forms, pulled out a blank sheet, borrowed a pen from the nurse's station. I wrote a sentence, folded it twice, sealed it. Morning cracked the sky open in thin strips of gray. I drove back, parked half a block away, walked up to the house I used to know, laid the envelope on the porch mat right in the center. No stamp, no name, just the truth, waiting to be read. Then I got back in the car, and I waited. I didn't wait to see her open the envelope. Didn't need to. I already knew the look that would crawl across her face. I'd seen it in others, when truth creeps up quietly and takes a seat where comfort used to live. Around midnight, I circled the block again and pulled into the alley behind the house. The brick beside the porch steps hadn't moved. Still loose, just like Mom left it. That key had been my fallback since sophomore year. I used it the night she died, when I came home late from med school orientation and couldn't find my voice to say goodbye. The key still fit. I stepped inside quietly, careful not to creak the floorboards near the hall. I didn't come to fight. I came to collect what was mine. Not stuff. Just proof that I still existed here. The house looked different. Same bones, but dressed up like it had something to prove. Photos I didn't recognize. A vase that had never sat there before. The Wi-Fi network was no longer Maddox home. It blinked on my phone as Laurel Strong. The air was stale. Or maybe I was just out of breath. I moved down the hallway toward my old bedroom. The door wasn't shut all the way. I touched the knob, paused, then pushed it open. Gone. Everything. No bed. No bookshelves. No rugs. The wall where I'd measured my height as a kid had been repainted. Pale gray. Clean. Cold. A whiteboard hung above a new desk. Notes written in purple marker. Zoom Westside Board 9 a.m. And don't forget to submit reimbursement form. My closet was empty. Not just cleared. Erased. The only thing left was a faint square of dust where my nightstand once stood. I stood in the middle of the room and just stared. My knees gave first. I sat on the floor and let the silence settle around me. They didn't redecorate. They sanitized. Mom's box of letters, the one she told me to open when I needed a reminder, was gone. So were my ribbons from track, the tiny book of affirmations I kept hidden behind the dresser, and my stethoscope, my first one, the one Dad gifted me when I got accepted to nursing school. It was all gone. And through the wall, I heard laughter. Laurel. She was in the next room talking to Elias. Wine glasses clinked. Some reality show played in the background. She probably thought she still had a place here, Laurel said, between giggles. They both laughed. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder, and pressed record. I didn't say anything, just held it steady, let their words hang in the air. Not rage, not yet, just remember. I tiptoed into the living room on my way out. The couch looked the same, until I saw the hoodie draped over the armrest. My hoodie, from undergrad. Faded blue with University of Kentucky cracked across the chest. A purplish stain on the sleeve. Grape juice maybe, or wine. The porcelain mug in the sink caught my eye. White, chipped, the same one Mom used every morning for coffee. It was hers, then mine. Now. Just another piece of history Laurel claimed by proximity. They never ask, I whispered. They just take. In the laundry room, I spotted a scarf I hadn't worn in years being used as a rag. A gift from Mom the year she started chemotherapy. Soft wool, navy with gold threading, folded next to the bleach. I walked back down the hall. No one noticed. The door didn't creak on the way out. I locked it behind me. Sitting in the car, I couldn't start the engine. I just sat. Hands on the wheel, house in the mirror. The tears didn't come, but something else did. A line in my head. Sharp. Final. If they can erase me here, maybe I'll build somewhere they can't reach. I opened my phone. Drafted an email to HR. Subject, request for extended night shifts. Typed it. Saved it. Didn't send. Not yet. I reached into the center console and pulled out a small sticker. Green, with a number 7 written in permanent marker. Part of a code system Mom made up when I was a kid. She used to stick them on recipe cards, notes in lunchboxes. 7 meant, you're not wrong. I stepped back out, opened the mailbox, and pressed the sticker onto the inside lid. Not a threat, a marker. Then I drove. Didn't turn around. I woke up with my forehead pressed against the car window. The sun hadn't fully come up yet, but the morning had that kind of stillness that warned you it wasn't going to stay gentle. My back ached from sleeping upright, but I didn't move right away. I looked at the house one more time, front porch untouched, mailbox still closed. No sign anyone had stepped outside since I left that envelope. I opened my phone and started a list. Textbooks, gone. My first aid certification. Gone. Photos of mom from the hallway. Missing. I started typing like it was muscle memory. Not just what was gone, but what shouldn't have been touched in the first place. The small things. The precise things. Things I remembered putting in certain drawers, lining up on certain shelves. Gone. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my old Etsy account. Password still worked. I clicked on my profile, then hit the Purchases tab. Scanned through items I'd bought for the house back when I was still naive enough to believe this family would last. A lamp from college, hand-sewn quilt, my mother's cassette of old church hymns. A seller named E.W. Sales had several listings up. Decorative stethoscope, not in working condition. Antique lamp, minor wear, heavy sentiment. Cassette, labeled by hand, likely personal. All were listed with Laurel's zip code, pickup location, my old address. My name wasn't in any of the listings, but the photos were unmistakable. My old quilt was the backdrop in one, my handwriting on a label in another. The description on one item read, "Used by a real doctor, sentimental value." They weren't just pawning my things, they were monetizing my story. I took screenshots, each one, every item, folder created on the spot. Proof, not paranoia. Then I opened Facebook Marketplace. Same seller, same zip, same quilt. I didn't cry, didn't swear. Just pressed report over and over until my hands stopped shaking. That afternoon, I went back to the house. No one was there. Probably at church or brunch or somewhere they could look good while doing bad. I still had the key. I let myself in. I didn't head straight to my room. I walked into the living room, the family gallery wall. The last time I looked, it held decades. Photos from before I was born, Polaroids of mom and dad at their wedding, framed baby pictures of me and Laurel. Now, it looked like a stranger's house. Laurel's graduation, front and center. Clark standing behind her, hand on her shoulder. Hazel at a garden party, beaming beside someone I didn't recognize. A large canvas print of Laurel and Clark at a fundraising event. Captioned beneath in cursive font, "Family is who shows up." I scanned every frame. Not one photo of me. Not even the one of me holding mom's hand at her last chemo session. Her photo. Gone too. Hazel had been edited into the timeline like she'd always been the only woman in the family. I looked at the wall, then spoke. Not loudly, just enough to fill the air. "Funny. You erased the one who always did." There was a shift inside me then. Not a scream, not even a sob. Just a break. Quiet but final. I heard my therapist's voice from 2 years ago, sitting across from me in a dimly lit office. "Anger doesn't make you irrational. It makes you awake." I was wide awake now. I took a photo of the gallery wall, then opened the home security app. I'd been added as a guest viewer years ago, still had access. I deleted myself from the account. One click, no more permission, no more silent surveillance. This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. On my way out, something caught my eye. The side cabinet, bottom shelf. One frame, half buried behind a stack of unused candles. I pulled it out. A photo of mom and me. I must have been 18. She wore her teal scarf. I had braces. We were laughing at something outside the frame. On the back, a post-it note. For her graduation dinner. The last one we ever took together. I didn't take the frame. I took a photo of it, then placed it back exactly where I found it. It wasn't about what they let me keep. It was about what they forgot to destroy. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, the lights off except for my laptop glow. I bought a domain. SheWasInHere.com. No content yet. Just a black screen, white letters. This is the beginning of remembering. 2 days passed. I didn't get any texts, no calls, no fallout. But my phone buzzed while I was sipping vending machine coffee in the staff lounge. A message from someone I hadn't talked to since undergrad. "Didn't know your sister's event was today. Beautiful venue." I stared at it like it had come through the wrong dimension. I opened Facebook, and there it was. A family brunch, dozens of photos, all smiles, floral centerpieces, Laurel standing in the center, hand on Dad's shoulder like she was the glue holding everything together. Hazel had posted the album, captioned, celebrating Laurel's strength and dedication during a challenging season for our family. I wasn't tagged, I wasn't in the pictures, but I knew that table, that white tablecloth. The chairs from our backyard repurposed and dressed in ribbon. One seat had a single daisy laid across it, like a tribute. The caption beneath the photo, "In memory of those who've drifted, but once cared." My stomach twisted. I zoomed in. Laurel wore Mom's piano pin, the one I'd kept in a drawer since high school. Guess I hadn't checked deep enough. I kept scrolling. The comments were worse. "You're such a blessing, Laurel. Real family shows up." Some people just disappear when things get hard. I sat there reading them, letting the words pile on like wet sand, not drowning, but heavy. I checked the family group page. My name? Gone. No history of me. It was like I had never been listed as a Maddox. I typed a comment, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. I could have said something, could have made noise, but all it would have done was feed the narrative. I already saw it coming, the replies, the "she's bitter," the "she's trying to ruin a beautiful moment." So I did nothing. Because silence, when chosen, carries more weight than 1,000 angry words. That night, a nurse I worked with messaged me, a screenshot. Laurel had gone live on Instagram. Title, "When your sibling chooses silence over family." She was sitting on the same patio where Mom used to drink coffee. Her tone was soft. She had a tissue in her hand. "We tried, we really did, but after Mom passed, she just changed. She stopped coming home, stopped calling. Dad, he still sets a plate out for her at dinner." The comments lit up. "She doesn't deserve you, Laurel. Stay strong, girl. You've done enough." She was good. Polished, measured, perfectly rehearsed sadness. I replayed the video 3 times. She polished my erasure until it shone. I didn't get angry. I got quiet. The next morning, I drove to the venue. Garden-style event space out on the edge of town. My badge still clipped to my scrubs, because I didn't even think to change. The staff hadn't cleared everything. A display board still stood near the entrance, laminated timeline of the Maddox journey, photos of Laurel's volunteer work, a quote from Clark about the daughter who stepped up, a section labeled the Maddox children. Only Laurel and Caleb's pictures were there. No sign of me, not even a silhouette. A middle-aged woman in a floral apron walked by, smiling politely. "Are you with the Maddox family?" I paused. She added, "Thought there were just 2 kids. You must be a cousin or something?" I smiled back. "Something like that." I asked for a brochure, slid it into my bag. People don't need to lie to erase you. They just need enough others to forget you were ever there. Back at my apartment, I opened the folder on my desktop, the one titled Proof. I started organizing, screenshots from social media, transcripts from the live stream, photos from the venue, files from Marketplace. I labeled new folders, public narrative, private reality, legal implications. This wasn't about revenge. This was about record keeping. They'd written the story, the one where I walked away, where they stayed behind to suffer, where they were left to pick up the pieces I dropped. "They're not villains," I whispered to no one. "They're authors. I just never got a pen." I opened my email. To info@gardenhallexkey.org. Subject, request for archived video footage, Maddox family event. Attached, my ID, a quiet signature. I hit send, closed the laptop, spoke out loud what I'd been thinking since the moment I saw my seat at that table replaced with a daisy. Let's play their story side by side with mine. I got the bank notification around 11:42 a.m., just as I was pouring my second cup of burnt hospital coffee. It wasn't a text. It was one of those automatic push alerts. Low balance alert. Joint account ending 4982. That account had Mom's name on it. It was supposed to stay untouched. Symbolic, sure, but it meant something. She opened it when I started med school, said it'd be our safety net if everything else went wrong. I hadn't touched it since her funeral. Neither had anyone else. Until now. I logged in while sitting at the back of the staff lounge. Balance. Salary earned. The last transaction. A full withdrawal 3 days ago. Listed under Authorized Family Withdrawal. Executor, Clark Maddox. I called the bank, held through 2 classical songs and 1 generic disclaimer. Finally, a woman with a voice too cheerful for what she was about to say told me the funds were transferred for household maintenance needs. Verified by designated family executor, Laurel. I didn't get angry, just cold. The kind of cold that slides under your skin and sits beside your bones. They used my mother's trust fund to patch up the cracks they'd made themselves. My money, her legacy, and I wasn't even given the dignity of a courtesy call. I sat there, surrounded by nurses trading shift gossip, and whispered to myself, they used her to pay for the silence they wanted. I stepped outside, walked past the ambulance bay, and called Dad. He answered on the second ring. Thorne, he said, like my name was a chore. I asked about the account, calmly, directly. He sighed, the way people do when they're already tired of a conversation they haven't had yet. I thought we agreed you weren't going to stir things up. She left that account in both our names, Dad. You lived in that house rent-free for years. Laurel has done more than her share. You owe more than you think. I felt my lungs squeeze. I paid for the plumbing. I bought groceries. I fixed things. You weren't a guest, he cut in. You were an obligation. I hung up. Not out of rage, just because the silence on the line after that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into something bottomless. How do you argue with someone who's rewritten the math of love? That line didn't come from a book or a quote. It came from somewhere behind my ribs. I drove back home, numb, not to retreat, just to think. Somewhere between the stoplight and the front door, I remembered the faucet. It had been dripping. Hazel rolled her eyes about it. I went to the hardware store and spent $48.32 on a new valve and wrench. Fixed it myself, never asked to be paid back. I pulled into the driveway, sat in my car, and opened the glove compartment. The receipt was still there, folded twice. I didn't need it, but I needed to know it was still real. That little slip of paper didn't mean money. It meant I had contributed, even when no one asked me to, especially then. That night, I didn't eat. I didn't even try. Just curled up in the guest bed at my apartment, arms crossed over my chest like armor. I opened a text to Laurel, typed, "You win. I'll leave it all to you." Paused, deleted it. The screen lit up my reflection, dark circles, clenched jaw, and a face that didn't look tired anymore, just resigned. They get the house, I get the silence. Who got the better deal? The next morning, I returned to the hospital for another shift. I hadn't said a word to anyone yet, but something must have changed in how I carried myself. Even the receptionist didn't ask for my badge. Midway through my shift, I overheard a younger nurse venting about her sister-in-law. She used Mom's name to get disability checks without even asking. I didn't chime in. I just listened. Then, almost without thinking, I said, "When people show you who they are, believe them the first time." Maya Angelou said it first, but it landed different coming from my mouth. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done waiting for fairness. I was collecting facts. That night, I opened Laurel's profile again. Typed, "You think I forgot everything I did? I documented it." Then closed the message without hitting send. Instead, I opened the proof folder and added a new subfolder, not yet sent. By Sunday night, I had stopped expecting the phone to ring. I took the overnight shift again. Volunteered for it, actually. The kind where the halls stay dim, the staff is half asleep, and no one wants to talk. That's how I liked it now. Talking meant questions. Questions meant explaining. And I didn't have the words, or the patience, for either. I slipped into the ICU, clocked in, and got to work. A teenager was septic. A man in his 60s coding again. An elderly woman refusing her meds. Inside that chaos, I functioned fine. Out there, I was crumbling. But here, I gave orders. I calmed families. I stitched blood vessels and answered pages without stammering. "You're always so composed," one nurse said to me on her way out. I smiled, the kind that doesn't quite reach your eyes. Funny thing is, you can hold a dying man's hand at 3 a.m., speak to his family like it's nothing, but still feel like a ghost in your own bloodline. On my break, I sat with my sandwich untouched and opened my email. A flagged thread blinked up top, from Diane, an old colleague who now worked part-time in legal admin. Attached was a PDF. "Thought you might want to see this," her note read. It was a public registry entry. Caregiver stipend form. State-funded, ongoing payments. Recipient, Laurel Maddox. Approved under Medicaid-based caregiving program. Listed patient, Margaret Maddox. My mother, dead almost 5 years. The authorization form was signed by Dr. T. Maddox. I zoomed in. It wasn't my signature, not even close. No curves, no downward slant like mine. It looked like someone tried to imitate my name from memory and gave up halfway. I read the line again. Authorized caregiver, Laurel Maddox. Authorized by Dr. T. Maddox. I didn't feel angry, not the usual kind. My chest didn't rise in heat, it sank. Like someone had siphoned something out of me and filled the space with ash. They hadn't just stolen from me. They'd taken my name, stuck it on paperwork, and turned my mother into a paycheck. They spent me. I didn't finish my shift angry. I finished it steady. That kind of steady people confuse for peace, but is actually pressure, like glass before it shatters. When I got back to my apartment, I opened my laptop and started a report to the Department of Health and Human Services. I listed the forged signature, the deceased status of the patient, my own professional credentials. I drafted the entire thing carefully, line by line. Then, I stopped. Not because I didn't know what I was doing, because I did. Filing meant blowing it up. Legal heat, potential audits. Laurel would call Dad, Hazel would get involved, and suddenly it wouldn't be about right and wrong, it'd be about loyalty. I stared at the screen. If I don't stop them here, it's because I still think they own the right to define me. I didn't send it, but I saved it. Named the file, What They Think I Won't Do, .tdf. I closed the laptop, walked to the kitchen, stood there with the fridge open, not even knowing what I was looking for. Then my phone buzzed, 2:13 a.m. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. The message was 5 words. Are you still alive? Signed, Caleb. I hadn't heard from my youngest brother in nearly a year. He never took sides, never said much, just vanished after Mom's funeral like everyone else had drained the air out of him too. I read it 10 times, didn't reply, but something cracked open in me, not like anger, more like thaw, like someone somewhere, even if too late, had noticed the empty chair. That was enough to remind me I wasn't crazy, just invisible. I sat down and created a new folder on my drive, labeled it just in case. Into it, I uploaded every screenshot of the forged document, bank transfers, Laurel's posts, the speech clip from the brunch, the photo of the fundraiser flyer with my name missing. Then I opened a spreadsheet, timeline, receipts, conversations, voice memos. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was archiving. This wasn't about revenge. This was preservation. For me. For anyone who ever got erased in silence and told it was their fault for not speaking louder. They wouldn't remember me as family? Fine. They could remember me as their reckoning. I stared at the screen, then moved everything into a secure drive. Set up a timed email to my attorney. Schedule, 1 week from now. Subject: if I don't make it clear enough. Just in case I didn't get the chance to explain all of it myself. I woke up before my alarm. No dreams, no panic, just clarity. It was Tuesday, 2 days since Caleb's message, and my mind hadn't stopped cycling. I hadn't responded, still wouldn't. But those 5 words had anchored something in me. Are you still alive? Strange how it took the quietest one in the family to speak loud enough for me to move. I didn't scroll the news, didn't check social feeds. I sat at the table, sipped black coffee from a chipped mug, and opened the just-in-case folder. Printed a checklist I wrote at 2 a.m. Assets, identity, legal chain, witness, no breakfast, no hesitation. People forget the quiet ones learn to keep records. By 9 o'clock a.m., I was at the county clerk's office. I told them I was doing a cross-check on some legal filings, medical nonprofit, small grants, public partnership claims. They didn't ask questions. Small towns like this, they keep the engine running as long as the paperwork looks good. I sat at the back table with a stack of scanned documents and found it on page 5 of a grant submission. Win Family Wellness Initiative. Laurel listed as founder. Elias as treasurer. Me? Dr. Thorne Maddox, initial program consultant. I never signed off on anything. Never gave permission for my name, my credentials, my history. Their foundation was built using mine. The state grant total, $18,000. My license number sat at the bottom of the form, attached to a description of services I never gave. They didn't build success, I whispered. They stitched it together with my name. I didn't storm out, didn't slam a file or raise my voice. I took photos of everything, dates, signatures, watermarks. Transferred it to a thumb drive before I even got to the parking lot. By the time I got home, I was calm again. Later that night, I reached for the box I hadn't opened since my first year of residency. The one Mom sent me off to school with. Labeled in her handwriting, "In case you forget who you are." It sat in the bottom drawer, covered in years of untouched paper. Inside, tucked in the spine of an old anatomy textbook, was an envelope, yellowed, fragile, written in red ink across the front. "Only open if you forget." I opened it. Her handwriting hadn't faded. "I know they will try to take everything, so I leave this for the one who never asked, never took, but always gave." Attached was a copy of the deed to the house, signed by Mom. Witnessed, but never filed. She had planned to transfer the house to me the year I finished med school. She must have known. Even then, I whispered, "She knew." I didn't cry. I scanned the letter, the deed. Saved them in triplicate. One copy on a secure server, one on a USB, one emailed to myself under a burner account. I wasn't collecting proof anymore. I was preparing testimony. I called my lawyer. Told him I wanted quiet legal alignment. His voice perked up when I mentioned Laurel. "You ready to move?" "Not yet," I said. "I want the foundation solid before I touch anything." I sent an email to Dr. Andrews, my old professor and Mom's former colleague. Subject: confirming signature authority on a medical grant. Message: I need to know if your name was used anywhere. If it was, I'll handle it, discreetly. Before I shut down the laptop, I reached into the cabinet for a mug. It was still there. White porcelain, hairline cracks, blue trim. Mom's favorite. I hadn't touched it in years. Thought I left it behind. But I must have brought it that last time, before I knew I wouldn't go back. I placed it on the desk beside the letter and whispered, "You left me the one thing they didn't know how to destroy." That mug wasn't just ceramic. It was a reminder. Not everything could be stolen. Some things had to be remembered to survive. I opened a blank site builder. Typed in a domain name, uploaded the letter, the timeline, the fake filings. I didn't name it, just added a password. Then sent one link to Laurel's nonprofit email address. No message, subject line, check your foundation. I didn't get the invite. What I got was a forwarded flyer from Megan, a nurse I'd trained 3 years ago. Her text said, "Thought you'd be speaking at this." The flyer was crisp and colorful. Annual ICU Staff Appreciation Family Celebration, hosted in part by the Wynn Family Wellness Initiative. Laurel's name sat right there, under keynote speaker. I wasn't on the schedule. No acknowledgement, no thank you, not even a misprint. But under the RSVP list, I found myself, guest number 24. No title, no department, just a label you stick on someone you don't want to admit you used to know. It wasn't about being honored. It was about being allowed to show up. And I wasn't going to ask permission to be in a room I helped build. Friday came. I arrived early, before the greeters found their rhythm. The woman at the check-in table glanced at her sheet, handed me a name badge, just guest. No doctor, no Maddox, nothing. I pinned it on. The auditorium smelled like catered coffee and floor polish. I recognized half the staff and none of the smiles. People looked through me like I was a temp, or worse, a stranger wearing a borrowed face. On stage, Laurel was radiant, not nervous, not surprised. She wore the badge of someone used to the spotlight. "Family-led healthcare reform," she began. "It starts with compassion, honesty, and showing up." Hazel clapped first. Clark sat straight, his expression empty. Elias had his arm around Laurel like he deserved a standing ovation for proximity. I stood in the back row, feet firm, back straight. Then someone touched my elbow. "I thought you used to consult here," a young intern whispered. "Didn't you leave?" I looked at her, not mad, just still. "Not yet," I said. The screen lit up. A grant-funded promo video began. Stock music, laughter, Laurel shaking hands, handing out donation kits, posing beside Dad at the nonprofit's first fundraiser. And then, there I was, blurred, in scrubs, from a photo someone had taken during a residency workshop. No name, no mention, just a body in the background to fill the frame. Then came the quote, "We started from nothing, just heart and faith." I opened my phone, logged into the archive. The silence in my chest wasn't fear. It was the pause right before you speak into a mic you never asked for, but finally deserve. QA came. The room shuffled, hands raised, laughter again. I stood. "I have a question," I said. My voice didn't crack. It didn't rise. It just cut. "I'm Dr. Thorne Maddox, trauma physician, daughter of the woman whose name was left off this project." Laurel froze. Her smile stuttered. I didn't give her time to interject. "I'd like to know who approved the use of my medical credentials in the grant tied to this initiative." Murmurs. A few heads turned. I held up nothing. No evidence. Just myself. And if anyone's curious, I have full documentation available of how this foundation was built. I stepped down, walked toward the exit. No applause, no backlash, just air, heavy and waiting. No one stopped me, not because they agreed, but because they couldn't figure out how to discredit someone who wasn't asking for applause. On my way out, I heard one whisper, "She was in the training videos, right?" I think that was her signature. A man in a blazer caught up, handed me a business card. "We should talk," he said softly. Behind me, Laurel's voice cracked, forced into casual laughter. Hazel's eyes were on fire. Clark looked down at his shoes. I didn't turn around. Not for them. This wasn't revenge. This was volume. That night, at my desk, I snapped a photo. My ICU badge on the left, my guest sticker on the right. Caption: I worked that floor for 8 years, but I was never invited. Nobody called, not Laurel, not Hazel, not Clark. The silence after the hospital event stretched longer than I thought it would. It didn't hurt like I imagined, just felt predictable. 2 messages did come in, both from unknown numbers. "You went too far. Some things should stay in the family." I read them once, deleted them without blinking, didn't even bother wondering who sent them. I'd learned enough by now to know which voices are worth hearing and which are just background noise in other people's rehearsed tragedies. Every morning, I made coffee in the chipped mug I had almost thrown away years ago. The one Mom used until her fingers shook too much to lift it without spilling. The cracks hadn't deepened. And somehow, the coffee tasted better now. Not because it was sweeter, because it was mine. Laurel's nonprofit website had changed. A new section on transparency. A footer added, "Formerly affiliated physician, Dr. Thorne Maddox." That's all I'd asked for. Well, not money, not lawsuits, just acknowledgement. We didn't go to court. There was no press release. Just quiet paperwork, documented corrections. A blog picked up my QA moment from the ceremony. The title stopped me. The doctor who refused to stay silent. I didn't repost it, didn't even tell anyone I saw it, but I bookmarked it, just to remind myself it happened. If people wanted the truth, they could find it. It wasn't my job to deliver it to their doorstep anymore. Caleb messaged me. "I saw it. I'm sorry." I answered with 4 words. "You don't owe me." He replied, "I know." Later that week, I got a voicemail from Clark. "I wish things were different. I can't fix it. I'm tired." That was the last time he used my name. Hazel never called, never emailed, never said a word. But silence has always been her most efficient weapon. I stopped waiting for the apology that was never going to be crafted. Forgiveness isn't the door. It's the decision to stop knocking on one that won't open. At the hospital, things went back to routine. I stitched wounds, managed chaos, trained interns. One of them, fresh-faced and nervous, stopped me in the hallway. "You're Dr. Maddox, right? The one from that video?" I nodded. She hesitated. "Any advice?" I said, "Get used to long nights and ungrateful families. Start there." She laughed, awkwardly. I didn't. But my steps felt lighter as I walked away. Later that night, I left a note in one patient's chart. Strong vitals, good heart, still healing. Could have been about him, could have been about me. A week passed. I sat outside on my porch as the sun fell behind the trees, wearing Mom's old cardigan, coffee mug in hand. No music, no need for it. I watched the steam rise, fade, and return. I was alone. But I wasn't lonely. I reached for my laptop. Opened the folder titled Archive. It had grown heavy, dozens of files, layers of documentation, years of silence unwrapped. I clicked Delete, not because I forgave, but because I no longer needed to prove I survived. Some scars don't need spotlights, they just need room to breathe. I set the mug down beside me. Let the final light of the day hit its rim. "They took everything they could," I whispered, "but they never took the proof that I was there." I left echoes too, and in case someone needed them, they were still out there. Narration for those listening now. If you've ever been erased quietly, know this. Silence doesn't mean defeat, it just means you're deciding who's worth your voice. Have you ever lived something like this?